Hello, Internet. I don't know if anyone's ever told you this before, and this might be a hot take, but you don't have to hate yourself. You're allowed to love yourself. You're allowed to love who you are and the things that you do. And I'm going to tell you how I, over years and years, learned to accept myself and love myself for who I am. Okay. First thing is guilt and shame. Those always lead to some form of self hatred. I would argue that guilt and shame in themselves are a form of self hatred. And sometimes that guilt and shame is justified because you did something that made you feel guilty or made you feel shame. And not all the time. Sometimes people are just hard on themselves and they're feeling guilty for things that they don't need to feel guilty for. But sometimes you do something and you sort of regret it. And it's something that you think about that you wish you didn't do. Maybe it's not the worst thing in the world, but enough of those things added up is going to cause self-hatred. So the first thing you got to do is try to minimize doing things that make you feel guilty and shameful, or accept the things that you do and understand why you shouldn't feel guilty about it. So let me explain. First things first. If you're in a situation, those are examples. If you're in a situation and maybe you're like being annoying and you're being kind of an asshole, and the people that you're with are not really liking that vibe, and it's something that happens often, maybe you should think about how you act in social settings. And you don't have to change your personality completely. You don't have to change who you are completely. But if you are constantly upsetting people and you don't want to be upsetting them, and they don't want you to be upsetting them, and then you think about it at night when you're going to sleep and you feel guilty about it, maybe try to figure out a way to stop doing that. Again, maybe this is a hot take, but I think that that's very valid. An example where you shouldn't feel guilty, in my opinion, is something like this: drinking a Coca-Cola. I'm not drinking Coke every single day. I'm not the healthiest eater in the world, but I'm also not the worst. And there's nothing wrong with having a soda every once in a while. I like the way it tastes. It's an enjoyable experience. And as long as I don't have it all the time, it doesn't really affect how I feel. So if you feel guilty or shameful for food that you're consuming, if it's not in excess and if it's not something that's like harming you, like for example, if you're like lactose intolerant, you eat a lot of cheese and it bothers you, it's like, yeah, maybe stop doing that. But most of the time, I don't think that people should feel guilt or shame for what they are eating, because you need to eat to survive. So sometimes something is better than nothing. I would say most of the time, eating food is better than not eating food. So if you have the choice to eat something or not eat something, you should probably eat something. This is maybe seems very basic and simple, but trust me, there are people that need to hear this, and I was one of those people. The other end of this is do things that make you feel good about yourself. So a lot of times when people feel guilt and shame, they have a lot of self-hatred, like I said, and they don't feel like they deserve to be happy. And they don't feel like they deserve to do things that they enjoy because of whatever reason they make up in their head. So you got to fight that feeling. You got to do things that you either think about all the time that you want to do, or that are things maybe you used to do and you don't do as much anymore for whatever reason. Do things that are fulfilling for you, because the concept of you, the identity, it's all made up anyway, right? Like, we can talk about authenticity all day. We can talk about like being a real person, being a fake person. None of that's real. A fake person is being real. They are a fake person. That's who they really are, at least in that moment. So all these labels got to go away. You got to stop worrying about if you're being authentic, if you're being real, who you should be, any of that stuff. Stop thinking about it and just Do the things that you want to do that make you feel good and that make you feel fulfilled. Now, for me, that's making music. That's a huge thing for me. And also making videos. I love making videos. I love talking. I love sharing my voice. And there was a time years ago that I felt like, well, why should I share my voice? And this applies to music too, music and videos. Why should I share my voice? Like, who wants to hear what I have to say? Who wants to hear what I have to make? Like, who cares about that? But it's like, you thinking that about yourself, and again, I'm talking about myself, means that you don't think your voice matters. And I think everybody's voice matters. Even the most vitriolic, hateful people should still share their opinions, and they should still, excuse me, that Coke's hitting. They should still share their voice, because the world is better off if people know how people really feel. By and large, the more we hide, the more we shelter, the more guilt and shame builds up. And that's self-resentment, and that can turn into resentment towards other people. And that's what a lot of self-hatred really manifests in. Because most people that hate themselves are not aware of it. If you're aware that you hate yourself, there is a lot of hope. So if you are constantly sitting at home and thinking to yourself, man, I hate myself, I'm the worst, that is actually great, because it means that you're self-aware and that you don't want to feel that way. A lot of people that hate themselves, they're not aware that they hate themselves for a multitude of different reasons, and they turn that self-hatred outwards into the world. And the parts of themselves that they are suppressing, that they hate, that is what they're pointing out in the world and pushing hate onto. Like the classic example is like a closeted gay person, right? If somebody hates that they are gay and doesn't know it, maybe they're not even fully aware that they are. I'll give someone the benefit of the doubt. Things are difficult. The human condition is difficult to work through sometimes. So I think it's important to give people space to learn and to grow, but not at the expense of other people. You know what I mean? So it's like, if there's a person who's gay and they're in the closet and they're not fully aware of it and they hate that part of themselves, they're going to be looking for it in the world. Because whether it's positive or negative, if something's constantly on your mind, you are going to look for it in the world. It's the same thing where, like, if you buy a Toyota Camry, that's like a white Toyota Camry, it's like your new car, you're probably going to see a lot of Toyota Camrys out in the world. It's because you're thinking, there's more on the top of your mind. In the past, you drive past them because you're not even thinking about it. So it's the same thing with everything, where it's like, if there's something on your mind and there's something that you're thinking about, you're going to look for it in the world subconsciously, And this applies to all negative thinking. If you are in a negative headspace, the world will seem negative. If you are in a positive headspace, the world will seem positive, because you are extracting from the world. The state of the world is what it is. Nature is what it is. People are who they are. It doesn't matter how you think about it. It doesn't matter. It's the same. Like, if I see a bee's nest, which that's one of my biggest fears, is flying bugs, specifically bees or hornets or whatever. I know bees don't actually sting. I've heard it all before. Excuse me. Sorry again. This Coke tastes really good, but it's making me burp. If I see a bee's nest in a tree and I'm not in a good headspace, that's going to evoke negative feelings for me. Fear, whatever else you want to say. But if I'm feeling positive, I might look at that and be like, wow, nature is beautiful. The amount of things that bees provide for the earth is incredible. And maybe I'll let that fear go because the positive power is taking over. You know what I mean? So this all applies to self-hatred, because I think self-hatred is rampant in the world. And I don't think it's even our fault fully. I guess we have to take accountability, but it's not our fault. So being on the internet especially social media, and again, I'm speaking from my own perspective, but I'm sure this applies to other people. Seeing other people's lives constantly, you're going to compare yourself to people, whether you are doing it on purpose or not. So it's really hard to love yourself if you're constantly being told, like hundreds of times a day, who you should be, or what you should be more like, or who you shouldn't be, or what you shouldn't be like. And that's not how you build esteem. That's not how you build up an identity, by comparing. Now, there's a difference between comparing and referencing. But I think it's whatever. It's, you shouldn't compare yourself to other people, and you shouldn't be upset when other people have things that you don't, or other people are certain ways that you are not. It's fine to reference other people because you can learn from other people, but you shouldn't be down on yourself for things that you can't control. Because even like your interests, you didn't really decide your interests, right? Like when I was a little kid, I started playing drums. Like I was really into music and drums and guitar from a very, very young age. But I didn't even choose that myself. I chose to continue to pursue it as I grew up and as I got older. It's something that I love and that I will never stop doing. But my dad plays drums. My uncle plays guitar. Like, I was watching live concert videos as a very little kid and feeling like that's who I wanted to be. But if my family didn't play instruments and I didn't watch those videos as a kid, I may have never got into music. Or I would have gotten into music like way later for a different reason. So even the things that you determine to be your personality or your identity, first of all, again, not a real concept, not actually real. Things are what they are. It doesn't matter how you perceive it. But you may not have even chosen the things that you like yourself. Actually, you didn't. You choose to continue to pursue them, but you did not choose to like them, really. Because even it's like, oh, well, I could have not pursued music if I saw my family doing it. I could have not pursued music, if I, like, it's as if it's a choice that I made to do it. But something within me wanted to pursue it. I didn't choose to feel that way. You know what I mean? There's a lot of... Sorry, my dog just woke up. I think I'm talking too loud. My cat's staring at me too. I don't normally record videos down here, so they're kind of like... I think they're a little confused. What was I saying? Yeah, so you don't choose the things that you like even. And I think that might sound crazy to certain people, but I really believe that that's true. There is so little that we have control over. And there's nothing wrong with any of you. There's nothing wrong with any of you. Every human is capable of good and evil, I think. There's no such thing as a good person. There's no such thing as a bad person. Everybody is a person. And they do things that are helpful to people or they do things that are harmful to people. That's it. I guess you could say if somebody is constantly choosing to do things that are harmful, that would make them a bad person. But that is so subjective and so overarching that I don't think that it's a good way to live, because all you're doing is setting yourself up for failure. If you decide that there's good people and bad people and you're one of the bad people, you automatically failed. Or if you decide you're a good person and then you make a mistake, you do something bad, now you're a bad person and you're like back at the beginning, when in reality you could just be a little bit off your path and then just get back on your path. I think there's a lot of ultimates, like not ultimatums. I don't know if I'm using this word right now. I can't think of what I'm really trying to say. A lot of people have very defined definitions for themselves and for others, when in reality it's not that simple. And deep down we all know that. So just applying this mentality has really helped me with accepting myself for who I am and not hating myself so much. Because it's like, so I have tons of mental health things that I've dealt with over the years, but one of the things that I've had really bad issues with is anger and rage. And what I learned over many, many years of growing and working on myself and therapy and all this stuff is like, yeah, I have to be accountable for my actions. It's on me if I am being angry and rageful and it's harming other people, but it's not my fault that I feel that way. Things have happened to me in my life that have affected me emotionally that I wasn't fully aware of and I was repressing. And you can't repress emotions. You can for a little while, but eventually they're going to come out. So, and that's scary. I know it's scary to deal with, and most people will not deal with it. And they'll just repress their emotions and force the rest of the world to just deal with them as they are. But I chose not to do that because I didn't like the person I was. I wanted to be better. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be more positive. I wanted to be more healed. And like I said, it took a lot of time, but first of all, I don't have those moments as much as I used to, almost never. And when I do have those moments, I'm a lot more aware in the moment than I was in the past. And I'm able to rectify it immediately. So understand that the things that you may think are making you a bad person, again, you have to be accountable for your actions, but it's not your fault that you feel the way you feel. So I think everybody just needs to be a little bit easier on themselves and a little bit easier on other people. You know the phrase like do unto others? Basically, it's like treat other people how you would want to be treated. I think that that's fine, but I think that that's not really the best way to look at it, especially maybe in like modern times. I think it's better to think about it the other way, is treat yourself how you treat other people. And maybe this is like a generational thing, like millennials and younger. Obviously, a lot of like baby boomers do not treat people as well, like by and large. They treat people worse than young people, I would say. In general, that's just my perspective, my experience. So maybe that was more relevant in the future, in the past, I mean, because people weren't treating people as well. But I think now, in general, more young people treat themselves worse than they treat other people. So maybe you should think about treating yourself how you would treat somebody else. And yeah, I think that pretty much sums up all my thoughts on this. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video.